Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everybody, William Harris here. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of this podcast where I feature experts in the D2C industry sharing strategies on how to scale your business and achieve your goals. Really excited about the guest that I have today, Brittain Ladd. Brittain is recognized globally as one of the leading experts in strategy, robotics, retail logistics, and supply chain management. He is also one of the leading researchers of AI, especially as it relates to global supply chains. He's currently advising one of the biggest social media platforms on shoppable videos, although the company is classified. He previously led the worldwide e-commerce and cross-border expansion, Amazon Fresh pantry operations, and micro-fulfillment strategy at Amazon, and he was a strategic advisor for Instacart and Kroger. That's quite the background, a lot of knowledge that you're bringing to the table. Brittain, I'm really excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
I do want to go ahead and real quick, we're going to get into the good stuff in a minute, but I want to give our sponsorship message here. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million, and one of them that IPO'd recently. And we were ranked as the 12th fastest growing agency in the world by Adweek. You can learn more on our website at element.com. That's ELUMYNT.com. So I wanted to dig in. You are somebody that I find to have really, let's just say, you don't mince words when you're on social media. You just go for it. And you say, this is exactly what I think is going to happen. And you have an incredible accuracy rate with a lot of this stuff. And so I just wanted to dig into what some of those things are that you've been saying that I think, especially as it pertains to e-commerce and retail and kind of the blending of both of these together, because I feel like you've brought a lot of really good things there. So the one that I wanted to start with was hyperlocal logistics. You posted something about what Borzo's doing with hyperlocal logistics. How do you define hyperlocal logistics? What are we looking at and what do we need to be aware of there?
So hyperlocal logistics is nothing more than being able to do analysis and identify, so where is the optimal location to forward deploy inventory? So that could be forward deployed inventory for a specific brand or multiple types of inventory from a retailer. So forward deployed inventory means that you say, well, instead of opening up these massive distribution centers that might be located in several states away, or even opening up, say, a warehouse that's 100,000, 200,000 square feet, hyperlocal means maybe you're opening up facilities that are 10,000 square feet, 7,500 square feet. And maybe you're opening up a dozen of them in a single city, especially if it's a fairly large city. So you simply are saying, how do I forward deploy my inventory, stage that inventory so it's closer to customers, so that when a customer places an order, identify where the customer is, where the nearest hyperlocal facility is, and that's where I fulfill that order. And because it's already among the majority of where people are at, I have a much shorter distance that I travel, and therefore it's much cheaper for me to make that fulfillment.
Sure. I feel like this is the opposite of what we were doing for a while. So for a while, everything was decentralized, right? Because it was just, department stores or whatever all over the place. Then e-commerce comes in and we say, hey, let's centralize all of this inventory in one big, gigantic warehouse. And now we're going back to this idea of localized stuff. It makes sense to me because it allows you to be more nimble with a lot of that stuff. But I imagine there's pros and cons. What are the things that we should be thinking of from a future? If you're running an e-commerce store and you're trying to be competitive against Amazon and some of these other brands, what are the things that we need to be thinking about from a hyperlocal logistics perspective to be competitive?
Well, so here's the thing. Number one, you should never, ever think to yourself, how do I compete against Amazon? Because you can't.
Sure.
Amazon is light years ahead of everybody else. But what you can do is say, so who are my customers? What do my customers want? And you make sure that you're providing that. And then you say, so what is it my customers want in terms of, say, the delivery experience? What's critical to them? And then you make sure that you provide that. And some of your customers may be like, I don't care if I don't get it for 3, 4, 5 days. That's fine. Well, then give them that option. Others may say, I absolutely want it same day. Then you make sure you give those customers that option. And it really does come down to understanding what is it your customers want, and you create this experience so where you can engage with your customers and give them that flexibility to choose what they want. That's really a better model than, many of the other retailers out there are doing. And so the smaller logistics companies that are pursuing this hyperlocal strategy, that's really what they've been able to offer to their customers.
Sure. I feel like when I think about what we want everything as fast as we possibly can. And so I would say that even 5 years from now, it almost seems inevitable where it's like, well, I don't need it today, but if I have the option for it today, I want it today. Do you think that that's likely the case of what's going to happen here too? Or the same way that Amazon Prime almost made it seem like we want it, we want free shipping, whether we need it or not. We want it to come here as fast as possible. If we have the option for it to be now, do you think that it's almost inevitable that becomes almost a customer expectation?
Well, think of it this way. I don't necessarily think it will be a customer expectation. It will be the norm that the customer receives.
Sure.
And the reason why I say that is, Jeff Bezos years ago said, the one thing you'll never hear from customers is that I really wish I could get something slower. And he realized that. So what Amazon's doing is they continue to make massive investments in their logistics network so that they can do primarily same-day delivery, but it's getting better. Really, what we're going to be seeing more over the next several years is a focus on precision deliveries. So they're going to say, well, William placed an order, and I know exactly where William lives, and I'm not just going to say, hey, William, your order's going to come today. I'm going to be able to say, William, your order's going to come at 3:35. It will be delivered by Brittain. It's in this vehicle. And it gets even more interesting. Give you the option to say, I really don't want you to deliver it to my house. Why don't you bring it to where I'm at a restaurant? I'm going to be at this restaurant between this period and this period. Or I'm going to be at this office location. Why don't you bring it to me here? Because I'd love to show what I ordered to some people. And that's what's really going to drive a lot of innovation in logistics, and especially in the supply chain, is that precision delivery capability where you're going to need forward deployed inventory, the hyperlocal capability, because the consumer isn't going to say, well, I expect everything to come quick. We know they can do that. They already know they can get that. But what is really going to happen is they say, deliver to people and not places. So I happen to be today at the gym. I want you to bring me that tub of protein powder I ordered because I want my friend to see it. Someone may say, I ordered this handbag and I'm going to be having lunch with my girlfriends. Why don't you bring it to me there so I can just show them? That's really what we're going to be seeing.
So this reminds me of buddy of mine, Tommy Walker. He was the editor-in-chief over at Shopify Plus for a number of years. And I remember we were at a conference, and this was at the time that a lot of these text message assistants just came out. I think the one that we were talking about at the time was like Get Magic, where you could text something. It was like, find me a pair of shoes and like bring it to me, right? So imagine you're at a conference, and this is a true story, not at a conference, but a buddy of mine, Eric Sword, he was going to meet his boss in Chicago for the first time, med sales. And he tells a story where his pen explodes on him while he's on the airplane. And he's like, so he's not got pen all over him. He goes to get a coffee when he gets off the airplane because he's kind of a little bit frustrated. And, coffee's going to cheer him up. And the lid wasn't all the way on. And so he goes to take a sip, spills some coffee. It's hot. He jumps back, rips a hole in the back of his pants. And so he's about to show up to a meeting with his boss with coffee, pen, and ripped pants. That's one of those options, though, where you could, in theory, if you've got hyperlocal logistics set up, you say, I need a new suit and I need it delivered to this location here because I'm about to go in. He doesn't have time to go and necessarily go to a store and pick it up, but have it just delivered right to where he's going to be for this meeting. He could just change in the bathroom or something at the office. And that would be a great example of like following and delivering to the person wherever they're at.
Correct. 100%.
I also wanted to dig into something else that you mentioned, which was Walmart, Target, CVS, a lot of other retailers. They're pulling out of certain cities because of crime. And this is what you said on LinkedIn too. Your advice to all retailers in 2023 is use this as a year for identifying every unprofitable store that can't be turned around, especially the unprofitable stores located in high crime areas, and close them, all of them. It makes sense to me. explain this a little bit more, though. Why such a strong statement there?
Well, number one is there is a level of there is a lack of confidence, a lack of willingness in many ways among executives that I meet with, that I advise. And what I've seen over the last year is that people are trying to have it both ways. They want to run a good business, but they want to be seen as being not too harsh on some of the communities they serve. And I say, you can't do that. You have to do one or the other. So if you're complaining about crime and you don't want to close your store, then accept the losses and stop complaining.
Sure.
But what I've really said to them is, look, at the end of the day, your role as a CEO is to do one thing: run a profitable business. The purpose of a company is to do one thing: create a customer. You cannot run a company in certain environments where people are aggressively coming in with trash bags and just pulling the merchandise off your shelves. And you tell your employees, don't interfere, just let them go. And to make it worse, these companies haven't even hired, security personnel. And what I've also explained is this, and I really do believe I'm accurate. I've had conversations with members of the Biden administration. I've had conversations with members of law enforcement. And what I've described to them is this: you are wrong when you say that the crime that's taking place in retail is organized crime. I said, no, it isn't.
Sure.
I said, this is an insurgency. And the reason why I say it's an insurgency is because I've spoken to people who are in some of these communities, and I say, I want you to tell me, what's the motivation for going into some of these stores? And what they tell me is, well, we believe it's ours. We believe they owe it to us because they haven't invested in our communities enough, and we see it and we take it. And I say, well, you do realize nobody really thinks that. And they said, yeah, but we think that because we've been told that's our right. And I'm like, I love the fact that you were so honest with me, because that's when I said, this is really a political movement. It's more of an insurgency. This is not the type of stuff that you see or hear from organized crime. I'm not saying organized crime isn't part of it in some areas, but this is a completely different environment. And that's why I say to these retailers, shut those stores and get out of those communities immediately. You have no obligation whatsoever to try and solve problems that you didn't cause. And you know as well as I do, things going on at Target, things going on at Bud Light. So many executives think they want to get involved in social issues. Crime is one of them. And I say, no, you can't. You didn't cause those issues. Stay out of it. And that's why when I write certain things like that, I remove all doubt of where I stand on the issue. And that's what I did in that post.
And I appreciate that. I feel like we need more people that are willing to remove doubt of where we stand on certain things and just be willing to say it. And to your point, I think the thing that I really like about what you said there is all of the good that a company wants to do goes out the door if they close all of their doors. If they go bankrupt and they're done for, all of the other good that you wanted to do in the world is gone. And so there is some type of a limiting factor where you need to say, is that the hill you want to die on? Is that the battle that needs to be fought right now? Or are there other things that you're doing that are good, that are worthwhile? So you need to be able to manage that profitably as well, so you can continue to move forward and do those other good things too. It makes sense. It reminds me a lot of the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20, right? And so there are times where I know in SaaS world, we will oftentimes say, hey, what are the bottom 20% of those customers? Sometimes it makes sense where it's like these customers account for very little of the revenue, but they're taking up 80% of the share of customer service complaints or whatever that might be. And so I remember the thing saying is like you fire some of those customers in the SaaS world. And I think that's kind of the same concept here in the retail world, where certain stores don't make sense anymore, and you need to cut those losses so you can do the good that you want to do in the other areas as well.
Correct. And it's not just necessarily certain stores, but frankly, certain entire cities. Because of how poorly those cities are run. And you're right. If I'm a retailer, I'm a Target, I'm a Walmart, whatever, I want to be able to do the most good. But I don't want to run my stores as an idiot, where I see all this crime taking place. Shut those stores down and let me invest my time, money, and effort into the regions of the U.S. where I truly can help people, because the people who run those cities are there as my partner and not as an adversary. And that's the other challenge that someone like Walmart ran into in Chicago. Chicago wasn't doing anything to help Walmart, and Walmart finally said, enough of this, we're out of here. And I was very complimentary to Walmart for making that decision.
Yeah, it's a partnership, right? The other thing that I like that you were talking about was Gen Z disrupting fast fashion. What do you mean by this? How is Gen Z disrupting fast fashion?
Well, I don't think Gen Z gets enough credit for the things that they do. Sure. Now, everybody likes to tease them. They do say funny things, and they talk about their mental health and all this. But I say, wait a minute, something's happening here with Gen Z. And I've been researching it. I researched it for about a year. And I said, you know what Gen Z is really doing? I said, Gen Z is reimagining retail as we know it. And they're especially doing this in fast fashion. And I said, they've taken a tool like TikTok, and they've actually used one tool, TikTok, a social media platform, to reimagine how they do everything related to fast fashion. They talk about it on TikTok. They show what they purchase on TikTok. They force, Shein, and Primark and some of the other fast fashion retailers out there to up their game and actually be able to meet the needs of the Gen Z who says, we want lower prices, we want better quality. And when they haven't been getting it, what Gen Z has done is saying, we're abandoning you. We're not going to buy anything. And these retailers who thought they could pull one over on Gen Z by lowering quality and still keeping prices the same, now have had to destroy a lot of that merchandise. And they've come back with and said, okay, we heard you. They are upping their game in the quality without raising their prices significantly. And so what I believe we're going to see is that more companies, larger companies, are going to look at this movement and they're going to say, wait a minute. If some of these companies can deliver fast fashions in 3 to 4 weeks, 8 weeks at most, why is it that we at Target can't do that? Or we at Walmart can't do that, or Kohl's, or Macy's? And I really think you're going to see these larger retailers reach out to some of the leaders, the influencers at Gen Z, the Gen Z influencers, especially related to this topic, and say to them, so what is it we really need to be doing? And how do we create our own private label? And we get the Gen Z even more involved and say, help us create this. We'll manufacture it. We'll have high quality and low prices. And I knew this was going to happen eventually. And that's why in 2019, I was the first person and I wrote this post. And I said, Walmart and Microsoft should partner and acquire TikTok. Everybody said I was an idiot. I had people who are my biggest fans on LinkedIn saying, you can't say things like that. People are going to think you're crazy. 1 year later, Walmart and Microsoft partner to try and acquire TikTok. But I had warned them that if they waited too long, the moment would pass because of the politics going on in Washington. And that's exactly what happened. I will not be surprised if over the next few months, we find out that Walmart has partnered with TikTok on something, made an investment in TikTok. TikTok, being invested in by Microsoft and Walmart together, I think could still be a possibility. I don't believe Congress is going to try and ban TikTok. The last thing the Biden administration wants is to make an entire voting bloc angry at them by blocking, TikTok, by banning TikTok. So I think it's interesting how this has all transpired with Gen Z. And I think what they've done is they've found a way to get rid of the middleman in many cases and leverage a social media platform to get what they want, to have their voices heard. But what they're really doing is using that social media platform for their first product search. So the companies that are advertising on there have gotten much better at providing much more content about those products. And so that's something I anticipate we're going to see Walmart and other companies wanting to do as well to take advantage of that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And to your point, this is almost our version of Walmart or Amazon, or the Gen Z's version of this, where, every let's say generation, there's this push of like, how do we make things faster, cheaper, right? And so you had Walmart did a great job of figuring out that, a really big part of that game plan. Amazon comes along, does their own version of this game plan, and now this is, like you said, Gen Z's push on this. And I want to say that I heard somewhere, Shine. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be completely honest. It's one of those words that I
pronounce it multiple ways. I call it Shine. I'll call it Sheen. I'll call it Shein. I don't settle. I don't settle on a word. So
neither can I. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page with that. But I want to say, I think I saw them saying they're testing out something like 1,000 products a day or a week. It was something absolutely mind-boggling that they're testing. They're being able to run with this, and I think that that's going to be an inevitability for a certain segment of things. On the flip side, I think that we're also seeing a resurgence in a desire for very, very expensive, one-of-a-kind items as well. And so I think that there will be maybe even more of a polarization of fast fashion and then, really good designer stuff as well.
And that's true. I absolutely agree. There's a movement already underway for what they're basically calling quiet fashion or quiet elegance. And it's just a low-key way to start introducing what appears to be high-end fashions into your social media posts and everything, but they're really just a better knockoff of some of those that are already out there. It's like a company said, we're going to specialize in knocking off high-quality fashions, handbags and watches and everything, and we're going to sell them. People know they're getting knockoffs, but our knockoffs look so good that by themselves, they are actually a fashion statement. Now, the real funny thing, in case you don't know, the biggest movement in men's watches for fashion is men wearing women's watches. And because it's, again, so you have to watch this stuff and learn from it. Yeah. I was like, well, that's crazy. Who would do that? And then as I researched it, I'm like, wow, one of the fastest growing segments of the population buying women's watches are men to wear women's watches because it's a fashion statement. Now, it's not something I'd ever do. I wear no watches or jewelry of any kind. I just wouldn't do it. But it's interesting how trends like this come along. And so now some of these other companies so how do we switch from having men's watches to create women's watches with some type of a male enhancement to it, so it gives a kind of a male-female coolness to it, cool factor. So it's interesting. Fashion's one of those things that I'll never understand, but I certainly pay attention to it.
When it changes so often, that being able to be nimble with that, to be able to be fast with what you're testing out from a fashion perspective, it's going to become even more and more that way.
Correct.
One of the other things that you talked about was Bill Gates. There was an article you posted about Bill Gates said that AI could kill Google search and Amazon as we know them. And you wrote about the search for the AI agent. What's going on from an AI perspective that's got Bill Gates all excited here?
Well, so what Bill Gates is basically saying is, well, wait a minute. If I have the ability to create a personal agent, so in essence, you have your own personal assistant that's via AI. I have it. And so I say to my personal assistant, Rocky, I want you to buy me a leather jacket, size extra large, and I want patches on it so I look like a version of Tom Cruise or something. Wait a minute.
Did you name your AI assistant?
Oh,
Rocky?
I was joking. I don't have an agent. I was just joking. And I said, well, if I was going to name it, that's what I'd call it. So that was just an example. But no, I don't have an agent. But would I name it if I had one? Possibly. Yeah. Would I call it Rocky? Possibly. But basically what Bill Gates is saying is that these agents, these personal agents, these AI agents are going to give us the ability to basically outsource shopping. And so the AI agent isn't going to go to an Amazon platform. It's just going to basically scour all available content and data on the web, and it will find the best deal, and then it will present it. I look at it and say, buy it, whatever, and it's done. And it's kind of some of the stuff I've been working on with the shoppable videos, actually. So this is an interesting topic for me. So what Bill says is that's going to kill Amazon, and I disagree with Bill on that. If I'm Amazon, I want you to have a personal agent. Because here's the thing that Bill forgot. No matter what you buy, it has to be delivered. And nobody does that better than Amazon. So all Amazon would have to do is if they were finding that people were abandoning their website and were buying products elsewhere, they would simply put the Prime badge on all of those websites. Wherever they would just say it's open source.
Sure.
Everybody gets a Prime badge.
Sure.
So when someone, an agent buys something, it triggers that it would be fulfilled by Amazon. It's irrelevant to Amazon whether you buy something from their website. If they get a percentage of that, and then what would happen? Amazon would more than likely just acquire some of these companies. So, and as far as Google goes, Google Shopping already is taking into account AI. And what they're saying is, well, sure, AI is going to be leveraged more. So we're just going to open it up to where when an AI search takes place, they will recognize things that we have on Google, and it will trigger our own AI to direct them to a website that we support or that we own. Yeah. So I don't think, I think Bill is making the same mistake that Elon Musk makes. When Elon Musk comes out and says, we're all going to die. We're all going to die because of AI. It's going to kill humanity. Sure. I can find no evidence of how that even be possible. Makes no sense to me that anyone would think that, let alone say it. But I think there's this level of excitement that certain people get. And when you're famous like Bill Gates and you say stuff, you know you're going to generate a lot of interest, and that's what happened. But I had lots of people reach out to me and say, yes, what you say makes the most sense. It's not that Amazon or Google are going to be shut down because of AI.
Sure. It's certainly disruptive, though. We're seeing this already in the Google search results where, even some of their ads are being pushed down for the AI search results. But I think to your point, having an AI agent, that makes the most sense. I actually told my brother about this. He's a developer, and I was talking about, what our AI agents would be like. And it'll basically come down to who does a better job of training their AI to do what they want it to do. And a lot of that comes down to the right inputs and outputs. And I haven't named mine yet, but now you've got me inspired to come up with a good name for mine. I think one of the other things though, that I was thinking about with like where you're going with the AI doomsday scenario, not necessarily doomsday, but I do think that there's some interesting thoughts about this. Ray Kurzweil has gotten into, right, let's say singularity, and like where do you start blending the lines between human and artificial intelligence. And just the idea of how does AI make decisions eventually. There's going to come a point where right now it's got certain guardrails in place, but those guardrails are going to be perhaps skirted. And I think that's maybe where Elon's coming from. And it reminds me of the idea of there was, and I don't remember who said this, but let's imagine that you're driving a car. Let's say you're driving a Tesla, and the Tesla has the opportunity of either running over this one person or these five people, or it can divert off and only run over and kill this one person. Well, what's the AI supposed to do in this scenario, right? Kill the one person or kill the five people? And it says, well, the greater good, maybe it's going to only kill the one person. It's a very difficult thing to be able to figure out how you program it that way. But then it goes back to, and this is where somebody brought up the idea of, do you remember the Zen parable of the farmer, where he talks about, it's like he loses his horse, and his neighbors are like, oh, what bad luck you have. And he goes, well, whether it's good luck or bad luck, I don't know. And then his horse, and then he gets like a wild horse that comes and he's like, they're like, oh, what good luck you have. And he's like, well, whether it's good luck or bad luck, I don't know. And then his son's riding the horse and breaks his leg, and they go, oh, what bad luck you have. He's like, whether it's good or bad, I don't know, right? Well, then his son doesn't get drafted into the army, the Imperial Army or something at that time, because his leg's broken, and they go, oh, what good luck you have. And he goes, whether it's good or bad, I don't know. And the idea here is we don't know the full extent of these situations. And so let's just imagine for a moment here that we program the car to run over the one person in the set of the five people. What if that one person was the person who's going to cure cancer? Well, which one was the greater good and bad that we don't know the full extent. It's like we can only look at one specific instance and not, the 10 ripple effects that it has from that. And so I can say maybe where Elon might be going, at least in my mind, is there's a lot of unknown here in where we even begin to allow AI to open itself up in some of these decision-making capabilities.
And that's true. Now, the example you gave, it's interesting that you chose Tesla, because I had to speak on this topic about AI. Okay. And one of the things I was asked was, so where do I see the value of AI? And someone had brought up, what about a Tesla? And I said, well, let's think about that. And I said, the value that AI would bring to all vehicles is the ability to know who to kill in an accident. And I said, so imagine a Tesla's going down the road. There is a bus that's jackknifed and the Tesla can hit the bus, possibly kill kids. The Tesla can turn to the right and basically maybe hit another car, but maybe there's a woman in there with children. Or the Tesla can go left and slam into a telephone pole and kill the driver.
Yeah.
The only logical answer is the Tesla should slam into the pole and kill the driver. So the beauty of AI is that it has the ability with no emotion to kill, and to kill the right person. And so I then took that to how valuable that's going to be for the military. And so I think what's interesting about AI is that it's going to force humanity to become aware of a lot more. AI, they're going to say, you know what, I don't want to make a decision on which of these prisoners should be sentenced to death.
Sure.
Let's let AI make the decision.
Very
and
morbid.
I fully believe that will become part of our justice system to an extent.
Sure.
But what I also believe AI is going to do is simplify many of the things that we do today. And by simplify, I think going to a website is Stone Age. I cannot believe that in 2023, sure, me and you and everyone else, when I want to find something, I go to Amazon.com or something and I'm scrolling page after page. I'm like, this is as far as we've come in all these number of years. AI is going to totally change all that. You know, the example I gave of the shoppable video, what I've made an argument to these companies is put the products you want in the shoppable video, have it to where someone on their phone looks at the shoppable video, and when they see something they want, they just click on it. It's already preloaded with all their sizes and everything. They click on it, it pops up. Do you want to buy this jacket? Yes. They already knows what size, and I just simply click on it and it buys it. I'm not going to a website. And I think that's the thing we're going to run into. So I'm not anti-AI by any stretch. I'm not one of those AI people who think it's going to destroy us. I don't. But I do agree with you. We don't know how lucky or unlucky we are, and we don't know what should be considered luck and what should be considered unlucky at this stage. But that's the beauty of technology. That's the beauty of innovation. We've gone through this many times as a country before. So this is just one of those times. So I say sit back, enjoy it, but learn everything you can about AI because I believe it's going to be transformational.
Yeah. There's one other thing you hit on that's very tangential, has nothing to do with it. But let's just talk about future predictions that I want to at least address. I think when we talk about, let's just say, car insurance in the future, you likely won't be covered if you are manually driving. I think that, you know, we're not far, a couple decades from the point where the AI is so much more sophisticated than you are at driving. And so if you put it into manual, you're just not covered. Sorry. You got in an accident. You took it off of, you know, the automated driving system. And so insurance is just going to, you know, bypass that and say, well, we're not covering that accident. You did the wrong thing.
So, and that may be true. And I actually think they may go more than that. But first of all, we have to address this. Not everybody is going to be driving a car that comes with the ability to self-drive. So I do believe cities and states are going to have to put in some type of network where even if you drive an older vehicle, it can come with something that is attached to your engine, installed on your engine, I should say, and maybe your transmission, and it gives that network the ability to move your car around.
Yeah.
If you don't agree to something like that, it's not that they won't insure you, it's that their rates they would charge you would be so astronomical. Right. You're going to say, I'm going to take this option. Yeah. I drive a 2007 Toyota FJ Cruiser. Prior to that, I kept my Jeep. I think I drove it to nearly 400,000 miles. I'm just someone who likes to keep vehicles forever. So do I want to get rid of my FJ Cruiser that I love so much just because there's some electric vehicle out there or a vehicle that would allow me to be part of a network? No. But will I put something gladly on my vehicle that allows me to blend in with other traffic and have my vehicle operate as well as theirs and get that insurance? Of course, I would gladly do that. Yes, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things. You know, people not submitting their blood and having it evaluated by AI is going to be something insurance companies are going to be looking at.
That's some Gattaca stuff.
Why is it? And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see insurance companies get a lot more demanding of William, why is it every night before you go to bed, you're eating that pint of ice cream and you're waking up to a Coke and a donut?
I've been exposed.
Because it tells you in your blood. It tells you, and it's not that you have to take a blood test. You just take something, you put on your skin, it's plugged into your iPhone, and it tells, and it's going to, and this is going to happen. Yeah. I work with startups and they already have the ability to do this.
Right.
So again, we don't know what's lucky or unlucky, and we don't know who is going to be lucky and who will be unlucky. Because someone who says, wow, I have to change my entire diet because of what AI is able to determine, they may say they're the most unlucky people in the world. I will look at them and say, this saved your life.
Right.
You have the best luck of anybody.
Right. Little bit scary when you think about Gattaca. Do you ever see that movie? Jude Law, Uma Thurman, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you know where I'm going with that, but they basically map out their genetic sequence and say, you're allowed to work these jobs because you have the potential to do that. Very interesting movie. If you guys haven't seen it, I don't know if it's 80s, 90s, I don't remember, but fun movie to watch if you're thinking about the future of genetics and where we're going with that. Last topic, and then I want to get in some personal stuff here too. Amazon ChatGPT like job listing for online store. I remember you talking about Amazon had this listing where they're looking to hire a ChatGPT like job listing for their online store. Do you remember what was going on with there? And like, what do you think Amazon is hinting at with this?
Well, at that time, and I don't believe that ad is valid anymore.
Okay.
Because what's happened is that Amazon on their own, see, Amazon has been conducting surveys internally in the company, and they've opened it up to everybody. They've opened it up especially to their executive team. They're expecting bigger ideas from their executive team, and their executive team said, well, let's just open it up to everybody.
Sure.
And so I believe Amazon's collected about 100 topics that ChatGPT can support. But Amazon's internal team of experts on AI looked at that list and they said, we don't need ChatGPT for this because we can actually duplicate most, if not all of these. And so Amazon and other companies are already doing this. They're getting away from thinking they want ChatGPT or that they need ChatGPT because of the large language model structure of ChatGPT. And what I'm saying to these companies is, no, you don't want to rely on ChatGPT. You may want to tap into ChatGPT to get started.
Yeah.
But what you want to be doing is opening up your database. Everything you make as a company, you sell as a company, all your customers, everything. Let your own ChatGPT type AI model run and collect all that data. And then basically what you do is you create your own large language model, but specific for your company, your needs, your customers. You bring in your suppliers. And the reason for that is that data is accurate. ChatGPT, because of the hallucinations it can come up with and all the other things that are really weird about it, I don't understand why any company would say, yep, that's our goal. We want to integrate and we want to integrate ChatGPT. Why? I don't see the value of that. So that's really what that was about. Amazon was like, we got to do something because ChatGPT, everyone's talking about it. But then cooler heads prevailed. Now Amazon's like, we don't want it. We don't need it because we look at how much data Amazon has for their own. It's probably the largest in the world. The only company that I think would have more would possibly be Walmart or the Pentagon. So imagine being able, now it gets even more cool. Imagine a third party that can get their hands on Amazon's large language model specific to their company, their customers, their suppliers, and they get their hands on it for Walmart and someone else, and they find a way to come up with a flawless, foolproof large language model AI specific to retail. Now look at all of the crazy things that these retailers will be able to do. And I believe that will happen. I don't know what third party will be able to convince them to do it. But I honestly believe this is what we're going to have happen. So I think we're going to see some really interesting things in retail in the coming years that will be inspired or capable by AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of this is going to come down to getting better about dictating what that AI's ultimate primary goal is for whichever AI you're working with. A lot of within the retail space and advertising space, at least, a lot of it is around revenue optimization. Fine, except that revenue doesn't mean profit. And so, a lot of what we do on the ad side is we optimize around profit. And it's just a matter of a lot of these AI tools getting better about being able to optimize towards that goal as well, which is a much better goal than just optimizing towards revenue. You seem to have a pulse on everything. I don't know how, but like, how do you sleep? How do you manage your day to be able to maintain this good of a pulse on what's going on and still stay sane?
Well, so here's what's interesting. I have clients in the Middle East. I have clients in Australia. I have them in Asia, and I have them in North America. So my day is I usually work in blocks. So like in the evening hours, because I have clients that are waking up in Asia and so forth,
Sure.
I basically work several hours and then I may sleep 1 hour. I work a couple of hours, I sleep 1 hour. So throughout the day, because I basically have to work 24 hours a day, or I work much more I work more in a 24-hour cycle, 7 days a week, because in the Middle East, their weekends fall during our week. So Saturday, Sunday is just another work day for some of my clients. So I have no choice but to be working over the weekend as well with them. But because of the time zone change, I'm working at a later period. So I've just trained my body to where I don't have to sleep that much. I don't sleep that much anyway. But I also am always up early to work out. I work out about an hour and a half every day. So that allows me to stay really energized. And so what I also do is I'm constantly researching. I research everything. But what separates me from everyone is when I see something I find interesting, a product, I hear someone talk about ChatGPT, a new company name I hear, I don't say, wow, that's interesting. I find out everything about that company or that product as fast as I can. And then I start asking myself questions. Where can this go? How big can this be? What can this disrupt? And that's allowed me to just have knowledge of just hundreds and hundreds of companies. But because I write so much for Forbes and I write so many LinkedIn posts, people from all over the world reach out to me. And I'm amazed at how many of them say, I'm a startup. I have this idea with this product and I want you to be the first to see it. And I'm like, great, show it to me. And so that allows me to gain an understanding of a lot of things. That leads me to being introduced to other people. And so I have this massive network of startups and investment banks and investors and PE firms that they basically contract me to say, take a look at this company or this category for us. Who do you think we should invest in? And it's just one of the ways that I earn money. But it allows me to, again, I have to drill down to these to a certain level. I have to get very granular. And it just forces me to learn and not just say, wow, that sounds neat. Yeah. I have to say, so how do I monetize this? How can I help this company make a better business decision? So that's how I'm so dialed into a lot of things. And again, like I said, I'm grateful for everyone on LinkedIn who does send me things as well, just to make sure that I don't miss something.
That's a much better answer than I thought. I thought maybe you were going to tell me that you had figured out how to clone yourself like Michael Keaton in the movie Multiplicity. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I do, but no.
He eventually,
no, but I also will. Yeah. But I also will say this. I began my career in the Marines, and the Marines really taught me something interesting. They always said you have to get to the 70% solution. And I said, well, what does that mean? They said, if you could come up with 70% of the details related to a potential attack they're going to launch, an enemy threat, whatever, you have everything you need to either attack that position, to defeat that enemy, or whatever. That's 70% rule. And so that's also something that continues to drive me. I don't have to know everything about a product, about a business, about a category. I don't need to know who the people are at every level of a company for me to understand what that company does, what the potential of that company is, and who are the competitors of that company. I still stick to that 70% rule. And so it's not like I have to spend hours and hours and hours of going into crazy granular detail of some of these companies. I just need to get to that 70%. And from there, that's when I have the ability to say, I know exactly where this is going, which is why again, 2013, I wrote a research report using game theory in the grocery industry. I was the first person to recommend Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. I came up with that through that research report in 2013. I remember that. Yes. I sent it to Amazon. They laughed and said, I was an idiot And they said, why would we as Amazon want to own stores? We're the largest online grocery retailer in the world.
Sure.
And I said, yeah, but you aren't any good at it. And people don't shop online, they shop in stores. Yeah. Now, in 2017, Amazon acquired Whole Foods. But because I had enough understanding of the industry, I was the first person who said, Amazon's going to struggle. They need an acquisition. This is the company they should acquire. And it became a reality. So I know what I do works. I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes, but I do have an ability to come up with good ideas. And most of the stuff I write eventually does become a reality.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. And I love that you called out the military background and training and how that's allowed you to see things in a different way than I think the regular person would. One of the other things that you called out too that I want to make sure I bring back to is you talked about basically polyphasic sleep cycle. So I don't know if you even knew that that's the term for what you're doing, but for those who are listening.
I've heard that time, but in all honesty, I've heard that term. I know a bit about it. I know some people swear by it.
Yeah.
There are people throughout
Thomas
history.
Edison did, right? Yeah.
Thomas Edison did.
Yep.
Yeah. Thomas Edison did it. I mean, there's been some other famous people who've tried it. I have to say it works for them. It works for me.
Yeah.
And it's not something I say everybody should do, but I found a way to make it work because, again, like everybody, I have to make money.
Yeah.
And it just so happens the way I make money is a little different. And I just have to have trade-offs. And I say, well, I don't mind if I'm actually working midnight to 3 a.m.
Right.
my time, because it helps my client in another region of the world, you know, and I'm not doing it for free.
Right.
So it's not like I'm saying, sure, of course I'll do it. I mean, I do get paid for it, but that's how I came up with that sleep cycle.
And I love it. I wanted to call out that name in case anybody hears that and says, I want to do what Brittain's doing here. It's like, well, that's what it is. Go look it up, Google it. You can find out more information about the polyphasic or biphasic sleep cycles. You're not afraid of AI. What are you afraid of? Is there anything that scares you that you look at in the future and all the things that you seem to have this ability to see the future in many ways? Is there anything that you look out and you say, it's got me a little bit nervous or a little bit, scared?
The biggest thing is the struggle the U.S. military is running into in terms of recruiting. They missed their quotas last year, each branch by anywhere from 15 to 30,000 people. Only about 11% of the people who are between the ages of 18 and 24, only about 11% even qualify for military service. So I have a post I'm actually researching. I'm working with these individuals from India who are H-1B. They hold H-1B visas, or they want to hold an H-1B. And so I'm working with them, and they're surveying Indians in India and in the U.S. and Europe. And I'm challenging them to say, look, if I'm the United States and I say to you, if you join the U.S. military in the Guard or Reserve and you serve for 4 years, I'll make you a U.S. citizen. Would you do it?
Sure.
Or if I tell you the only way you get an H-1B visa is to register for the draft in the United States, to make you eligible for the draft and to legitimately make you required to serve if you are drafted, would you do it? And I have to admit, I'm surprised at how many of the people are saying, yes, I would do that. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to prepare a solution, and I'm going to send it to Lloyd Austin, who is the Secretary of Defense, because he's struggling to come up with a solution. And I'm saying, I believe it's right in front of us. You have all these people who want to immigrate to the United States who have these great job skills. Have them become part of the military. Just change the requirement a bit. And that's the thing I'm working on. We know throughout history, we are in danger if we don't have a strong military.
Yeah.
And when we look at China, we look at things going on in other parts of the world, no matter what, we have to have a strong defense. We're not able to do that under today's methodology. But I do believe some of the stuff I'm going to recommend, most people in Congress would say, absolutely, that makes perfect sense. Let's do it.
Sure. It's a brilliant idea. It actually reminds me that I've seen at least some studies that would suggest a lot of times immigrants have a higher patriotism than a lot of people who were born here. And so there's that actually, like you said, that was surprising. That actually doesn't surprise me. I think sometimes you have to experience things somewhere else to realize just how good it is here. And if somebody's wanting to say, there's a lot that I'm willing to do to be able to come and be a part of what America is doing. We're not perfect. No, there's no perfect country, but we've done a really good job in many ways. And I think that that's encouraging to hear that there are people that would be willing to do that. And I'd love to see if there's a way that we could get more excitement right here from those who are born here as well. More patriotism, more excitement about the things that we are doing right versus maybe nitpicking all the things that we're doing wrong.
Oh, I agree. Like I said, I served for 6 years in the Marines, and I've told Lloyd Nolan, I've written stuff before, and I've said to Lloyd Nolan, the Secretary of Defense, I'm like, if you want, bring me back on active duty and put me through all of these programs. I've been very honest with them. I'll say, sure, I'm not asking you to have other people do it. I said, I served 6 years, but bring me back on active duty and I'll go through all of these programs and I'll give you my honest opinion. Yeah. Was it a good idea, a bad idea? Because if I can't do it and I'm going to recommend it, well, obviously, sure, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. So I'm willing to do that to this day. So I really do take this issue seriously, but that's one of the bigger ones. Some of the social issues and things like that, we're just like we were in 1968. We're going through this crazy period, and everyone thought we were going to fall apart in 68. Sure. And then a few years later, we had the Reagan administration, and everything totally turned around. We're going to go through the same thing. Politics and social issues will always be part of us. But there are some big things we always have to be careful of. Yeah. The environment, understanding what's really optimal. Does it make sense to tear up the earth to make electric vehicles? I really struggle with that. Yeah. So I think there's some interesting things we're going to have to tackle. But, I've always had this attitude, if something scares you, get over the fear. Force yourself to do it. That's why I jumped out of airplanes. That's why I scuba dived. That's why I cliff dived. That's why I free climbed. I mean, when I learned how to free climb because I saw this guy free climbing on a commercial. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I could ever do that. And I stayed up all night going, well, you got to figure out a way to get over that fear. So I had to go take classes and courses, and I learned how to free climb. And I'm not that great at it, but I can do it. So I think that, anytime we run into things that scare us, we have to confront it, whether it's an individual or a country. So that's just something I believe in.
Well, I've got one for you then. Bonsai jumping. Are you familiar with bonsai jumping? Apparently, I'm told it's when you throw your parachute out, dive out, catch your parachute, put it on, then you launch your parachute. That's another level of, I'm not sure I would do that.
Okay. There's a big difference between sheer stupidity
fair.
And being afraid.
That's
because
fair.
the margin of failure or the margin of success is so small in that, that's really for someone who's a skilled expert at it. Yeah. And maybe if I was a base jumper and I could get to that level, I might be willing to do it. But would I jump out of a plane by myself? No, I'd want a safety crew there with me. Yeah. So that's the difference between somebody who does something absolutely foolish.
That's fair.
That causes themselves to die or others, and versus someone who says, I'm willing to try that, but I know I need to mitigate the risk.
That's fair.
That's an intelligent way to look at that. Like Tom Cruise does all of his stunts, but he has an army of people who have made him an expert.
Sure.
And there's an army of people making sure he doesn't die in these stunts. That's how he mitigates the risk. So I believe in the same thing. But would I just like today say, sure, William, I'll go out and throw my parachute out and jump after it? Not a chance, because I don't think I could catch it.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think I could.
Hopefully Tom Cruise doesn't die, but if he does, I think we're pretty close to having an AI version of him anyways. And so we can just make all the movies we want with him anyways.
That's what the future of AI.
It's right there.
10 years ago, the future was we will have movie stars that aren't real.
Right.
And I fully believe we're already seeing that with Thanos and the Avengers movies and other things. So I think we will have that. Yep. Absolutely.
We are at time. I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time here. I can't thank you enough for coming on here, sharing your time, sharing your wisdom with us. Is there any last words that you would want to say to anybody who is in the e-commerce retail business and you want to encourage them, inspire them, help them look at something else differently?
Well, the main thing I always say is think big.
Yeah.
Think big. And the other thing I say is crush all assumptions. I find a lot of companies are their own worst enemy.
Sure.
They're afraid to think big. They're afraid to crush all assumptions, and they convince themselves that they can only do certain things. And then when they hire me, I'm like, why aren't you doing these other things? And they're like, well, we didn't think we could. I'm like, well, then you weren't thinking big enough. Because when you think big, it should scare you.
Right.
When you crush all assumptions, that should eliminate all your fears of what you can and can't do. Crush it and figure out a way to get it done. So that would be my advice. Think big and crush all assumptions. And when companies do that, that's how you become Amazon.
Yeah. And while you're thinking big, maybe dream big. It's a song, Ryan Shoup and the Rubber Band. When you dream, dream big. It's a great song. I love it. Go listen to it as well. If people want to follow you, connect with you, stay in touch with you, work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just connect with me on LinkedIn. I connect with everybody. That's the easiest way to do it. And then from there, you can follow me on Twitter and everything else.
Awesome. Thank you again, Brittain. Really appreciate you coming out here, and everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep.
Goodbye, everybody.
See ya. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.